Just to serenity.
Gita is stress to serenity. In that is of Bhagavad Gita.
That is 18 chapters were taken from.
No, stress to serenity is inquest of God.
Inquest of God. It is based on the.
I wanted to speak about that.
He wants you to speak about stress to serenity.
Tomorrow we'll tell. You have to take the text, We'll make a mention. We'll make a mention. Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om
Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
Shri Ram Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Okay, what? Stress to serenity? It is here. Before we take up the usual text, one devotee wanted to say something about stress to serenity. Initially we thought we would share it on tomorrow, but later on, why was he prompted to take it up? Only to remind us that whatever he made us to unearth from the in-depth study of Inquest of God, he wants us to renew, he wants us to remind us again and again. Otherwise, it might be forgotten. It might be filed and kept somewhere. So, we will just go through that. You all know, stress to serenity was the outcome of our year-long in-depth study of Beloved Papa's first book, Inquest of God. As many a times he made us to understand that Inquest of God is not merely a yatra narrative, but the 30 or 35 chapters (37 chapters). Through all these 37 chapters and the introductory article, Papa is giving us clues to lead a peaceful and blissful life in remembrance of God. So it is something like a manual, Whenever we are confronted with various types of challenges, duties, commitments, from unexpected quarters we get these challenges. So we need something to stand, to overcome, to handle such situations. So this is something like a bag, in quest of God. When during the in-depth study, whatever we could unearth from each chapter, we can name it as some tools, and we keep it in a bag, always with us. So whenever there is anything to be done, we look into the bag, take that particular tool and try to ameliorate the situation or to overcome the situation. That was the motive he gave us, and that is why he made us to title it as Stress to Serenity. Every one of us, when we come to this world and when we enter into the life of our own, that means from our period under the care and shelter of our parents, when we step into a life of our own, we have to pass through many stressful periods. All of our own making, accept it. But we don't know that is because of our own making. So Papa was also subjected to go through the severest stressful time. In 1920, to be more specific, he did not know the answers, totally frustrated, and he cried, "Where is rest, where is peace?" Because he was cornered. Every time when he does something, from our level we can say, we can name it as utter failure. Mounting liabilities on one side, business was not taking off. At home, Mrs. was also physically, she was not well, arthritis patient. Plus, she was orthodox in her habits. He was highly progressive. So at both fronts, he was passing through the severest crisis. So when he cried, at that time, it so happened that he happened to have the darshan of Mahatmaji from a distance in Mangalore. And that was the instrument, according to him, that was the first spiritual touch. An inexplicable experience he was made to go through, and Gandhiji was a great votary of Ram Nam, and then he also started chanting Ram, Ram, Ram. He switched over to Khadi, started spinning. Somewhere we have read even he joined the national movement for some time in the midst of all these personal problems. And then he knew that the name was giving him some solace. And so he went deep into it. It was not merely chanting. It was chanting with manana, trying to link the sense of individuality to the Nami through Nama. Somehow he was blessed with the wisdom to know that he is chanting the name of one who is within and who ultimately made him to chant. So with this background, when he started chanting, he was getting peace, and at that time, the rest of things are there in the book. So from the stress, and we will just read out that particular portion. The 27th December 27th December 2022 is a momentous and historic occasion for Anandashram, as it marks the magnificent centenary of the sannyas of our Gurudev, Swami Ramdas, endearingly called by devotees as Papa. On this blessed day, 100 years ago, in response to the inner calling, Vittal Rao, as beloved Papa was then known, renounced all that bound him to this mundane world, and later adopted sannyas and took the new name, Ramdas. These steps heralded a new beginning in his spiritual journey. Traversing the length and breadth of the country, Beloved Papa was touched by the undeniable divine presence during the eclectic encounters and unpredictable environments. This journey transformed him from a mere individual to an enlightened visionary and culminated in the founding of Anandashram in 1931. His renunciation still serves as a constant reminder of the true meaning and purpose of life. It makes us introspect and engaged as to where we are now and as to where we are headed. It constantly and consistently inspires us to journey inward toward the eternal, eventual fruition of our life. Therefore, during Beloved Papa's Sannyas centenary year, as motivated by him, the focus of the program was on an in-depth study of his book, In Quest of God, with a different approach. That is, how to bring in the God dimension at every turn in life. In Quest of God is a graphic narrative of the unique experience Beloved Papa had during the first year of his itinerant life. This inspiring autobiographical account highlights his total reliance on God, his positive acceptance of all situations, and absence of otherness in his universal vision. Total reliance on God, positive acceptance of all situations, and absence of otherness. An in-depth study of every chapter of this enthralling book makes us aware of the plethora of values lying latent within its pages. Spontaneity of life, born of egoless purity and innocence, a consciousness of the indwelling and all-pervading reality, and a constant effort to see Him in all, with an unconditional, cheerful acceptance of all situations as ordained by the Lord, are the supreme notes and refrain of the voice that rings through the whole text. Spontaneity of life, born of an egoless purity and innocence. Every chapter, a consciousness of the indwelling and all-pervading reality, and a constant effort to see Him in all with an unconditional, cheerful acceptance of all situations as ordained by the Lord. These three were. This is the first lesson he teaches. The text also calls for attention to the idea that bhakti and jnana are to be simultaneously developed. Although most of the incident in the book lays stress on the impersonal aspect of the divine, adoration of the saguna aspect is also given its due importance. Jnana is the realization of the Atman, Nirguna Brahman. After attaining jnana, the bhakta looks upon the whole universe as God Himself, Saguna. Another significant facet of In Quest of God is that Beloved Papa makes a mention of the word Ram more than 450 times throughout the text. This illustrates the unique and intimate relationship that Beloved Papa had with Ram. This relationship ultimately paved the way for him to achieve a state of perpetual serenity and peace born out of his union with Ram. Why this pamphlet is named as Trust to Serenity? The underlying message conveyed through In Quest of God is that if we want to lead a peaceful life in all circumstances, constant remembrance of Him is a must. It is the master key to unlock the complexities of life. Remembrance of God. Remembrance of God is the master key to unlock the complexities of life. This becomes clear when we go through the first few lines of the first chapter and the last few lines of the last chapter. The first chapter portrays the picture of a person who was deeply stressed. This is how the book starts. For nearly a year, Ramdas struggled on in a world full of chaos, anxieties and pains. It was a period of terrible stress and restlessness, all of his own making. In this utterly helpless condition, full of misery, where is relief, where is rest? This was the heart's cry of Ramdas. This is how the text begins. Stress. In the last few lines of the 37th chapter, the last chapter, revealed the transformation from stress to serenity that had taken place within him in the course of almost a year. His life was totally surrendered to the divine, ever at peace, ever in bliss. Ramdas, these are his own words, the last few lines of the 37th chapter. Ramdas stays by Ram's command in a cave called Panchpandava cave at the Kadri hill and lives there a serene life, devoting his whole time in talking about, writing off and meditating on that all-loving and glorious Ram. In Quest of God can become a life manual if we adjust or realign our attitudes, actions and thought patterns with the approach shared by Beloved Papa. At a superficial glance, this may appear to be an intellectual exercise. However, as we dwell more and more on these thoughts, whenever we are faced with challenging circumstances, the first thought that may come to mind is, how would Beloved Papa respond? This will make us recall various ways in which Beloved Papa had successfully brought in the God dimension. And then we will be able to calmly deal with all situations, knowing that it has come about either as a test or to teach us something. It will also enable us to become habituated to having a positive approach in all situations. Intensely reading the text over and over again the past 1 year, followed by manana, that is reflection and meditation, helped in identifying quite a number of profound points lying deep within the textual presentation that could aid us in leading a peaceful life and forging ahead in our spiritual journey. These points were shared through videos on YouTube on a weekly basis from January to September 2022, and 198 points were also identified later. Still, it is keenly felt that in spite of our repeated efforts, we have barely scratched the surface. This means the in-depth study is an ongoing process having no full stop. A few pointers from the first article in IQG, In Quest of God, and each of the subsequent chapters are shared here, which will help us in our move towards the awareness of Him, first within and later without. Devotees may kindly note that as this study is pursued further, they may also come across many more points. This is how this pamphlet starts. So we first go through his first first article. He introduces Ram to us. Before he utters Ram, he introduces Ram to us. The first and foremost clarity an aspirant needs while in quest of God is to have the right concept of God. There are many who are doing sadhana. They do not know why they are doing. Their conception of God is very limited and narrow. They must have, in the first place, a right concept of God before they try to attain it. The first one, try to develop a concept. So that is why the first, before that was his first book. First book. He started scribbling. And we don't know, nobody knows. But we were told later that after he came back and when he was trying to write in small papers, and when somebody came to the cave, it was all in the cave. That cave, even today we cannot go and sit in the cave. 100 years back, just imagine. And there, somebody went through, they were thrilled. So they said it should be brought out in the form of a book. And then somehow, in 1925, this book came out. 1925. So the manuscript was done in 23 and 24. Just imagine. Sorry, not 24, not 23. 23 only he came back. December 22 he left. He was back in Kadri cave by the end of 1923. And 24, unlike today, today we prepare something, in a few days you can get it printed. Typeset printing, each page they may not be having too many sets of types. So 1 or 2 or 3 may be there. If one page is set, unless we approve it, taking so many proofs, they cannot change the set. So you can imagine how much time it will take to have even the first print. So they must have started it from 1924, we presume, by say half of this Papa would have prepared, not prepared, he was scribbling. And finally, somebody took all these papers and then they started putting it in the form of a print. And then Papa had to do the proof correction. And by 24 end, probably 1 or 2 or 3 proof corrections would have been made. And 1925, it saw the light. So the first article, even at that time, he was very clear. Before he introduces the word Ram, the reader should know what Ram stands for. So he says, Ram stands for truth. Truth means which always remains. Love means absence of otherness. The goal of human perfection. A state of completeness, flawlessness, or supreme excellence. The subtle and mysterious power, the creative force, the sustaining power, that which motivates towards constant change, overall intelligence, goodness, kindness, beauty, the ever-present, all-pervading essence or spirit, which binds everything in the universe together, gives life to everything. So this is he has written an article on Ram. Title is The Truth, the Love, the Goal of Human Perfection. So he introduces. And then the first self-effacement, yes. Viral Papa emphatically states that the above can be well understood by humbling ourselves to such a degree as to totally subdue our egoism, our self-assertion as a separate individual existence. These are all in the first page article. Having reached this stage, through an awakened consciousness of Ram, we will be naturally prompted to sacrifice all the interests that concern the body for the welfare of the fellow men and fellow creatures who are all manifestations of the same Ram. Then it starts from chapter by chapter. And chapter by chapter. Each chapter we go through, we try to go through our own life, and then what can be taken from this book. Then we understand these are all the points. For example, first chapter. Utter helplessness leads to intense prayer from the bottom of the heart. That means if you feel whenever you are confronted with a problem, you can manage it, you will not think about God. When we have failed completely, wherever we go, the door is shut. When we know we have no other alternative, then suddenly we cry. We pray for him. Prayers are answered intuitively from the core of our being. And he uses the word great void. So God is also defined as, apart from the Ram, what we read out now, great void. Mahashunyam. A void which is not nothing. A void in which everything is there, but remains untouched and unaffected by everything. Just like we take a vessel for serving. The vessel in which, what we make use of is the emptiness of the vessel. You take payasam, sweet one, it will not object. Afterwards you clean it, you put sambar, no? Afterwards you put a bitter gourd curry. Again it doesn't get affected by it. It offers itself everything, but does not get affected by any of the contents. The container does not get affected by the characteristics of the contents. So we are all different contents, but the great void, God, the Supreme Head, though He allows us to exist with the different characteristics, it does not get affected at all. So when we offer this prayer, so this idea, when we get this, He is there with us, but He is not affected. Everything He facilitates, but doesn't remain, He does not get affected, He remains unaffected, untouched. That is why we are praying to Him. Because He is impartial, Then the great void, a synonym of God, stands for the all-enveloping reality. Oh. Can you hear now?
1 second, sorry. Now you can.
Can you hear?
Hari Om?
Hari Om, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Are we remembering the stress to serenity? Or forgotten? All are keeping mum. Everybody has forgotten.
That's why Papa has reminded.
Huh?
That's why Papa gave a reminder call today.
I think we will stop this Gita business again, come back to IQG then. Throughout 1 year, we spend a lot of time on each and every chapter. Everybody has forgotten.
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir.
But everybody is keeping quiet. How do I know that? Great void, you remember?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yes, Swamiji.
Only one has answered.
Despair not, came the great voice. Despair not, came the voice of the great voice.
Despair not.
Then only two.
Subtle and mysterious power from you.
Subtle and mysterious.
Okay, let them say, only not one person. There are so many, na? Huh?
Struggle and Papa was in great struggle and floods. We heard the inner voice.
Okay. Then,
Spare God.
okay. Anybody else?
The anxieties and pains, terrible stress, restless, the time great while. Papa.
Are we remembering in quest of God in-depth study? Are we going through the book Stress to Serenity periodically? I think we have to go through a test. Why is it happening, We are only hearing. If you only hear, we will forget. If we don't make a note, we do some manana, connect it with our daily life, we will forget. It becomes simply a hearing session. That is not the purpose. 1 year intensely, we all of us struggled, to find out what is there in each and every chapter that would help us to lead a peaceful life, that would empower us to handle situations perfectly, at the same time not moving away from our goal of becoming one with Him. So we have to find out whether we are all in quest of God. If only we are in quest of God, we will be able to eke out the maximum benefit from such a text. Otherwise it will become only a diversion. A positive diversion. Instead of hearing something else, we hear good things during that 1 hour and then forget about it. Papa doesn't want anyone to do that. Because we have been pointed out that in 2 years' time he could scale the heights. Whereas now for decades we have been struggling, So what is the difference? Why is it so? Why it happened only 2 years for him and Mataji to reach the scale, and in our case, why we have not been able to reach the stage? That is how he prompted us to take up this in-depth study. If a mere superficial exercise is done, it will not help us. To be very, very blunt. So great void, a synonym of Ram, stands for the all-enveloping reality which remains ever untouched, unaffected by the different characteristics that separate one from the rest. And another point is, go to the source of everything. Then intense faith leads to trust. Then preparatory steps, fixed resolve, sustained faith, optimistic outlook, self-denial, and satsang through swadhyaya. All these things are prerequisites. Then what is the code of conduct he gives from the first? Simple living habits to gain more mind space for God remembrance. Our comfort zones become less and less, and because we give more and more space for God, our mind space for comfort zone becomes less and less. That is called simple living habits. Then introspection to know whether the me and mine, the sense of possession, is reducing. At the end of the first chapter you will find the me and mine was receding. Remember Him, be the period ever so small. So like that, 9 points emerged. Like that, 198 points emerged from all these 37 chapters. In order that we get a clue, we brought out this small pamphlet and distributed at the end of the centenary celebrations. Because this is our Magna Carta, this is our constitution, I would say. If we are thoroughly connected to the theme of inquest of God, to a very great extent, we will be blessed with His guidance from within to move forward. It's a wonderful text. So kindly, all of you must be having their copy. Those of you who came here for the centenary celebration, they were given. These were translated into 5 or 6 languages: Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, Hindi, and later on now Marathi. So that those who come from different states, they can have it in their own language. So that as we read Inquest of God, suppose we read this also, we will be able to pause for a moment, not for a reading. Even I would say chronological reading is also not necessary. Any page you look, in something you will get. But if we do it systematically, the advantage will be each chapter when we hear, we will know the values contained. We know the hints. We know the important point that is highlighted there by Papa. And we also know that it may not be possible for all of us to remember these 198 points. So again, some filtering was done and reduced the whole to 26 or 27 points. I will read out that. Before that, we would like to share some more thoughts about this initiative Papa gave us. Inquest of God, the first book, authored by beloved Papa Swami Ramdas, may mean many things to many people. To a casual reader, it is a witty, free-flowing travelogue worth reading. To a literature enthusiast, its linguistic flair and unique narrative are astounding and captivating. But to a seeker of truth, a true sadhak, this is a quintessential spiritual guide that offers clear insight and candid outlook. Papa Swami Ramdas is a seeker turned seer. Seeker turned seer. He found what he sought for. He found his refuge in the Infinite One, God, and later became the one and only refuge to thousands of devotees and seekers from all walks of life. He was never a preacher, he was truly a preceptor who always lived in communion with the divine. He said, Ramdas, through a ceaseless repetition of the divine mantra, side by side with the concentrated meditation on the all-pervading, eternal, ever-blissful, indwelling God, had attained freedom and peace even before his advent into the world as a mendicant. Inquest of God is an exceptional chronicle of the most eventful phase of his blessed life, peppered with profound insights meant for all spiritual seekers, then, now, and forever. Often spiritual aspirants spend a lot of time pursuing so many methods due to the lack of clarity, and this often results in frustration. In Papa's case, right from the start, he could unwaveringly stick to one path, bringing success in such a short time. Papa was from the beginning very clear that the God he was seeking was within, and that everything was happening only by his will. This reality got stabilized in him within a short time because of remembering him through chanting of his name ceaselessly and contemplating on his attributes simultaneously. As chronicled in the book, beloved Papa wandered all over India, from the deep south to the far north, abandoning the comforts and conveniences of the earthly life, reliant only on the great provider. Often the sky was his roof, wild streams quenched his thirst, total strangers fed him in unknown places. Indeed, no one was a stranger for him. He found Ram in everyone on the way. He shared his endless love and compassion with the whole of humanity. Intense aspiration, coupled with earnest practice to attain the highest, quickened his spiritual progress, and in a short time he had the vision of his beloved God everywhere, within and without. The result was unending bliss. Having thus attained the supreme goal of life, he started on his mission to guide and serve mankind, to awaken it to the awareness of God by founding Anandashram in 1931. His teachings are the clear and direct signposts for those who take to the path. However, beloved Papa wants devotees to dive deep into his words, to understand the theme through their own experience. This is very important. That is why we are not remembering. We have not mingled, we have not connected with our own experience. We have not integrated it in our own life. So it remains as a theory. It remains as an explanation. It remains as a travelogue of somebody. So we are quoting Papa's words. Through mere superficial churning of thought, Ramdas's words cannot be understood. You can throw light on them only when you bring with you the light, you bring with you the blazing torch of your own perfected experience. Experience is gained by diving into the depth of your mind. Mere assertion of the truth is not realization. Realization means direct perception and experience. This is a very important quotation of Papa. God realized, when we say realization, we want to realize, we want to liberate. Realization means direct perception. Not hearing, not seeing anybody, not doing anything outward, but it is a direct perception. 27th December 2022 is the centenary of beloved Papa's sannyas. His renunciation was an internal transformation that became the cornerstone in his spiritual foundation of his life thereafter. To commemorate this momentous historic occasion, many devotees were inspired by him to take up his seminal work, In Quest of God, for an in-depth study. While carrying out this experiential exploration, it became obvious to the devotees that reaching the heights of Papa attained in such a short span of time requires a further serious approach to and a more rigorous discipline in their spiritual practices. While carrying out this experiential exploration, it became obvious to the devotees that reaching the heights Papa attained in such a short time requires a further serious approach to and a more rigorous discipline in their spiritual practices. Complacency is seemingly a major roadblock in their endeavor. Being easily contented with mere vocal chanting, doing bhajans, attending satsang does not seem to take their journey much further or farther. Being easily contented with mere vocal chanting, doing bhajans, attending satsang does not seem to take their journey much further or farther. In this context, it will be appropriate to remember the words of Puja Mataji. I wanted you all to read In Quest of God 11 times so that your mind would turn within to Nirguna Brahman. There is a special reason for Papa making me ask you to read In Quest of God daily for 11 days. It is intended to take you within. You may not attain Papa within you on the 11th reading, but you will at least have started going within. It is like entering the ashram gates. Once you are within the gates, you have nothing to fear. Likewise, once you turn your gaze within, you have nothing to worry. These are the words of Mataji. Prompted by Mataji's inspiring words, devotees were able to dig deep into the text and unearth many learnings that would immensely empower them in their spiritual pursuits. Needless to say, this exercise is a just humble beginning. Nowhere near the end. It is just a dip in the ocean. Swadhyaya knows no full stop. In this study guide, these relevant learnings were added to the end of each chapter so as to enable the readers to deepen and broaden their understanding of the text. If there is one word that can sufficiently describe the content and the intent of In Quest of God, that word must be expansion. From me to we to him. It is hoped that this book will serve as an invitation and a reminder to expand themselves from where they started to where they want to reach. So now we will just go through the selected values. 198 is difficult, humanly not possible. At least let us remember a few of them. Go to the source of all sources, the great void. Subservience to a higher power, a means to erase me and mine. Constant dialogue with him. Whenever free from duties, meditate and utter his name, be the period ever so small. Resorting to periodical solitude and observing silence aid in curbing the outgoing tendencies of the mind. Prayer becomes most effective when it is self-originated. Cultivate simple living habits. Tripod of sadhana, fixed resolve, sustained faith, optimistic outlook. Of these three, an optimistic outlook is more important. Depend exclusively on inner guidance. Self-imposed disciplines ensure progress. Maintain equanimity in all conditions. Throw ourselves entirely at his mercy with nothing to fall back on except him. Accept every situation cheerfully, treating it as ordained by God. Develop a positive attitude at all times, including in adverse and trying circumstances. Develop a positive attitude at all times, including in adverse and trying circumstances. Real contentment is the outcome of a dedicated life, free from grumblings and complaints. As far as possible, try to be in a spiritually conducive atmosphere. Although our life and all its ingredients are transient, it does not mean that they are insignificant in any sense. All events and individuals have a purpose in the grand scheme of things. Nothing is irrelevant, nothing is unimportant, Nothing is insignificant. Pray to the Creator to help us remain steadfast in our commitment to remember Him in all actions and see Him in all His manifestations. Becoming aware of grace enables us to do sadhana perseveringly, knowing that He is the activating principle behind all events, including our sadhana. Become aware that personal, impersonal, saguna, nirguna, all have relevance in spirituality. Personal means deities, mahatmas, bhaktotamas, etc. Impersonal, the indwelling reality. Saguna, attributes such as love, compassion, kindness. Nirguna, beyond attributes such as stillness, silence, witness consciousness, etc. And steps in the spiritual journey. Bhakti is the root. Bhakti, devotion to God. That is the root. Vairagya, withdrawal from the outer to the inner, is the trunk. Jnana, feeling the presence of the Atman within, is the flower. Parabhakti, feeling the whole universe, including ourselves, is pervaded by Him only, is the fruit. So Bhakti is the root, Vairagya is the trunk, Jnana is the flower, Parabhakti is the fruit. And tests come unawares. And what is the zenith of spirituality? No? Peace and serenity at the inner level. Absence of otherness, love at the outer level. This is the yardstick or the norm. Whether we are progressing spiritually, how do we know? Peace and serenity at the inner level. Absence of otherness, love at the outer level. So what is important is this manana. Otherwise the mind, mind has got a trick of taking us away. At that moment we are thrilled, we get inspired, but unless we do the follow-up, unless we do the homework, unless we do the reflection, manana, contemplation, periodically, it will not come up in our mind. We are back to square one with our usual preconditioned, preconceived notions. So the effort was to bring out some tools with which we can refine our mind. Swami Ranganathanji used to say that it is a refinery. Unless we subject it to a process of refining, the crude oil cannot become the 5 or 6 byproducts which are useful for our daily life in the form of aviation petrol, aviation spirit, petrol, diesel, kerosene, naphtha, and finally the bitumen. No? So if it stays like a crude oil, it won't be of use. Similarly, the mind has got capacities. Mind is vested with so many potentialities, capabilities, but unless we subject it to go through a process of refining, the output like absence of otherness, love for all, quality, care and concern for others, creativity, productivity, all these things will not become expressive. Before we close, for the sake of those who have not heard it, we started the session. It was a wonderful 10 days program with 24 hours Ramnam on one side and satsang or study session from morning till evening in the Pandal in Panchavadi. We had a tough time to accommodate all the devotees. More than 700 people attended that program for 10 days, you can imagine. So the program started with Adi Shankara's one sloka in Vivek Chudamani. Even now it is relevant for all of us. Aptoktim khananam tatho perishila yutkarshanam swigratim nikshepa samkshepate nahibahi shabdaistu nirgachati tadvad brahma vidobadesha manana dhyanadibir labhyade maya karya tirohitam swamamalam tattvam na duryukadibihi. It's a wonderful sloga. Meaning is, as a treasure within, hidden underground, requires for its extraction competent instructions, excavation, removal of the stones and other such things lying above it, and finally grasping, but never comes out by merely called out by name. I just go to the ground on the surface and call out by name. That means by our literal, our academic, our intellectual knowledge. That is calling out the name. That will not help. We have to do the digging. So it can be attained through the instruction of a knower of Brahman, followed by reflection, meditation, and so forth, but not through perverted arguments. Sadhakas should know that the purpose of the in-depth study of beloved Papa's In Quest of God is to experience the presence of the indwelling and all-pervading reality Ram only by delving deep into the text through regular and persistent efforts to contemplate, to reflect and meditate on the theme contained therein. This can be achieved and certainly not by merely reading the text at the surface level. The above shloka reminds us of this salient factor. 1 hour. So that is how this book sense came. You can take this. You can take this.
Yes, sir.
Connect certain words in this, like the free trust, faith, and all these things with the Bhagavad Gita.
Can we connect this to the
Everything. Because there also it starts from Vishada Yoga, no? And the last one is Moksha Prapti Yoga. So what does it mean? Started with Vishada and ending with complete rain. So there is a lot of similarities between Bhagavad Gita and Papa's. Lot of.
So why not we take up the Bhagavad Gita?
No, Bhagavad Gita, we are on a process. We are going through it for the past 3-4 months, 2-3 months. We Bhagavad Gita on speech, Bhagavad Gita on values, Bhagavad Gita on gunas, Bhagavad Gita on surrender. No. That which affects us directly. 700 slokas we don't want to mug up and say. How, in what way it can be useful for us.
At least in each chapter, some glimpse.
We are doing it. Now at the moment what we are doing it, we are trying to relate everything with our daily life. The daily problems, when somebody says, it can be easily connected. So that we will allow Gita to enter into us. Not sloga meaning. So that, it becomes a part of our life. Just like In Quest of God has become part of our life, we want Bhagavad Gita also to become a part of our life. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Namaskaram. Putani Satam Varadu Varanam Varaveliye. It was a reminder to all of us.
Swamiji, I want to speak Hindi. What to take when I came?
Little louder, Jayanti ma.
This book I want it in Hindi.
Hindi we have.
Hindi we have.
We will send it to you. Okay.
I have in English, but I want in Hindi. Hindi I can understand. It was easy.
We will send it to you. Tomorrow we will send it to you. Because we were running out of stock, now we got it reprinted.
Or they can download also.